Jose asked, are there other metrics besides these four that you would use to tell a story about the health of the system? So I think that you can certainly add more things to this story, but I think those four are sort of the essential components. If your dashboard doesn't tell you those four things about every component or every application or a given application, then you're probably not going to be able to understand whether or not the system is healthy without having to do a lot more spelunking. And notice that when people come up with like health metrics, maybe they have like an HTTP endpoint that you hit to see if the system is alive. If that's just like a HTTP 200 kind of thing where, oh, your system's up, oh, your system's up, that's not really the same thing as your system is healthy, right? It's probably only healthy if you're meeting the SLOs and SLIs that you promise people for that system. So again, this picture is really, I think, a better way to go about it than just measuring those sort of low-level granular metrics. Okay. Pedro asked, have you seen, besides the three firms that you talked about, have you seen this in the wild? So have I seen this elsewhere outside of the companies I work with? No, I don't see a lot of people doing this idea specifically. I think it's only been kind of recently that observability has been an important vocabulary word that we've started thinking about in the broader systems community. I mean, I think there have been people who've been talking about this idea for a long time, but in terms of is this really being broadly implemented yet, I would say no. It's just little pockets of folks who are interested in it, but it's not broadly distributed. But that probably explains why people hate getting PagerDuty alerts, or why all of that just goes straight to the junk mail folder on your inbox. Is because you get a lot of those things, and they don't necessarily correlate with the application's health. I think that was all the questions I got from Twitter, so if there are audience questions, I would be happy to take them now while we still have a couple of minutes. So any questions? Going once? Going twice? Yes?
So say you're working with a brand new system that, like one that I've been working with is Kafka, and they have like a gazillion, and I might be exaggerating, but they have a lot of metric that comes out, but I have no idea what they all meant. What if you work with another system that is exactly the same thing? How can you make sense and get your attention if you have no idea what it is, and you only have a finite amount of time to actually play with it?
So you don't know what the system does?
No, you know what the system does,
okay.
But the metric that comes out of it is literally gibberish for me. Like, I don't understand what it means.
Who decided what the metrics were, I guess, is the question.
Whatever the system gives you. You basically go in JMX and it comes out with all those numbers. But
right, so I would say that's a case where, that's a case like the very beginning of my talk where I said, you're measuring 100 different data points. Do they mean anything about the health of a system? Or do they correlate with the health of a system? Not necessarily. I think what has to be done in that case is, if you know what the system does, you have to figure out what does it mean for the system to be doing work. Either write a metric that, you're using JMX, you said, so emit a metric that corresponds to whatever the work being done by the system is, whatever the whatever the demand on the system is, whatever the output on the system is. So that's where that cost aspect comes into play that I described before. You have to understand. That's the trade-off of this approach, is you have to understand what it means for the system to be doing work. And if the system isn't telling you that, then you have to get that information out of it. So I would say you can't really use this approach unless you've done that. So those other metrics might still be important as inputs to understanding, say, the efficiency of the system. Is it using 5 times as much memory to process the same amount of data as it was before after a new release? That's probably something to be worried about. But it's the health of the system that you want to be most concerned with. And if you're not getting that in your metrics, then somebody has to be able to add that to the set of metrics that is being emitted by the system. Other questions? Going once? Going twice? All right. Thank you very much.